Merry Christmas, everybody! It's ShadowStar here, and for a Christmas video, I've decided I'm going to be ranking every one of the Doctor Who Christmas specials. Now, that's only the Christmas specials. No New Year's, no 50th, no anything, just the Christmas specials. So that's 13 episodes. And to be honest, it's a bit tricky to rank these because except for maybe a couple, all of them are still pretty damn good. So even the ones lower on the list will still be quite good. But anyway, enough rambling. Let's just get on with this already. So we'll start obviously with the 13th. My least favorite Christmas special easily is going to be The Doctor, The Widow, and The Wardrobe. This is an episode that just defines all the reasons I'm not that fond of 11. Now, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of reasons I do like the 11th Doctor, but there are some reasons I don't. I do not like when the Doctor is overly childish. He can be good with children, but you don't have to be a child to be good with children. And there's an entire sequence of that through this episode. There's just this entire sequence where he's showing around the house and just being a child, even though no one cares. But then, that's not even it. The rest of the episode's still pretty weak as well. Now, I'm always pretty hit and miss on whether child actors, but the child actors, especially the boy in this episode, they're just so annoying. And even the mother can get annoying at times. I know it's supposed to be emotional with the ending, but even I found the ending to be a bit too, I don't know, sappy or I don't know, just a cop-out, because it's something that Moffat occasionally likes to do where he just likes to have a happy ending where everything works out, no one dies, there's no real threat or villain of this episode. Like, okay, the trees aren't particularly villainous, the people burning them aren't particularly villainous, no one really is being villainous. It's just a circumstance of a bad events that the 11th Doctor helps fix, all because the kid decided to walk into the present box. But either way, and then of course it ends on one of my least favourite 11th Doctor lines. Why do they have to give him... Look, I can handle when he says timey-wimey, but having lines like humany-woomany, that is the stupidest thing 11th Doctor has done. But, yeah. Look, it's festive in some ways, but at the same time, it's just all the reasons I don't like the 11th Doctor. But let's not be too negative. Let's move on to one that apparently everyone loves this episode, and I'm not that fond of it. Now, I don't hate it. It's still got a lot. It still has quite a few good moments, and I can still enjoy it in some ways. The episode is A Christmas Carol. Now, like I said, apparently a lot of people rank this as their favorite, and I can kind of understand why, but at the same time, sometimes, again, you can have a Christmas episode without it always being super happy, sugary, fun-loving Christmas. And that's what this episode feels like, especially with the ending. Now, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy the song, even if it is a bit cheesy and happy at times. I do like the song, the music is good. We do have a few good moments with Rory, he's one of the better characters. But, I don't know, again, the child actor wasn't as bad as in Widow and Wardrobe, and I did like how they tried to tie it in with the actual Christmas Carol with the past, present, and future. But again, it's the 11th Doctor, it's the earlier 11th Doctor. Like, 11th Doctor gets better closer to the end of his era, but for me, Christmas Carol, it's not bad. It has some good moments, but it's also not one I get excited for. Now, moving on to 11 no, it's not an 11th Doctor episode for once. It's Return of Dr. Mysterio. Now, a lot of people dislike this one, and I can kind of understand why. I don't hate it as much as other people do, but I also very much enjoy it. First off, I'm a massive, massive fan of the 12th Doctor, so, even in an episode that's kind of weak or small, it still has a lot of good 12th Doctor moments. It does have him coming off the heels of his events with River Song, and it also has Nardole. Is really, I mean, I know Nardole was in the previous episode, but this is the beginning of him, really, and I enjoy their dynamic. And, okay, I kind of enjoy all the allusions to superhero stuff. The one downside is, for a Christmas episode, there's like no Christmas in this episode, except for the very beginning where the kid thinks he's Santa. When we cut to present day, there's no Christmas. It's so weird. Like I said, the previous two episodes were too Christmassy, and this episode has no Christmas. It's just, but again, I don't hate it. It's still got a lot of good points. I love the 12th Doctor. There's plenty of good lines and moments. 12th Doctor can have a lot of good deadpan or sarcastic lines to how ridiculous the situation is, so that'll always give the episode some credit. But moving on to the 10th best episode, The Runaway Bride. Now, like I said, I don't actually hate this episode. Like I said, it's actually hard to rank the Christmas episodes because most of them are still pretty good. The Runaway Bride is still pretty good, but I can kind of understand the lower points are, as I do like Donna, but in this first episode, I can understand why people are put off by her. She's annoying and whatnot, and it's also not as big as some of the later episodes will get to be. It's still great. It's still got some good 10th Doctor moments. It's still got that huge Russell T Davies feel where everything's got to be huge and explosions and and it's for the first few Christmas episodes, everything is down to earth, and I like the down to earth episodes. I kind of miss them. There hasn't been as much of that these days, but it's still. I also not that good fan of the Rachnos. She's a bit too over the top hammy. Now, of course, it's Doctor Who. You're gonna have lots of over the top hammy villains, sure, but I don't know. There are plenty of moments where she could come off too much, but either way, it's still a good episode. I don't want to come off down because there's still a lot of good moments. It's still, I'd happily watch it. It's not one where there are some episodes where you put it on and you're like, oh, not this one. It's not that. None of these episodes from this point on are ones where I wouldn't want to. I'd happily watch this right now. Moving on to a kind of similar episode, for the 9th spot is The Christmas Invasion. Now, it's a bit of an odd episode. For one thing, the Doctor's asleep for the most of it, which, on one hand, I can kind of understand why you do that, because it's the first regeneration for the modern series. You don't want to rush people into a new Doctor, so you have a bit of the Doctor, but also so people are actually wanting him to show up, but also you explore characters we're familiar with Rose, Mickey, Jackie, and even exterior characters like Harriet Jones. But it also does have a good Christmas feel where, it starts off stuff with, you've got the spinning Christmas tree, which is a bit of an odd moment. It's a fun moment, but you also think, why did Sycorax randomly decide to use a spinning Christmas tree? But then, you've got the robot Santas, which was also in The Runaway Bride. It's a good balance of Christmas without Christmas. It's a good way to do where Christmas isn't the focus of the episode, but Christmas is definitely there, and that's what I like. It's a good way to do a Christmas special without going overboard, and then you've still got a good villain, you've still got climactic moments, you've still got exciting moments with the first time we properly see the 10th Doctor and all that. You really define who the 10th Doctor is near the end. You get all that moments, plus it sets off the Russell T Davies era tradition of trying to have snow that isn't snow. But anyway, moving on to my 8th slot, it's The Snowman. Now, I actually really enjoyed this. This is where, like I said, a lot of people are hit and miss on the second half of Series 7, but I really like the latter half, mainly because I do like the 11th Doctor later on, and contrary to popular belief, I don't actually hate Clara as much as I often think I do. I do think she wore out her welcome, but this version of Clara is actually very much enjoyable. It's different from the Clara we get, but it's a very enjoyable one, She's able to just have all sides of her. She's able to have a stern side with the kids. She's able to have a fun, whimsical side when she's discovering the Doctor. It's actually a Christmas episode of Moffat's where we don't have a happy, fluffy ending. We have a sad ending with this version of Clara dying, and we get more emotional about it than we have previous times. But it also leads into what will become the rest of Series 7. But even still, there's plenty of good comedic moments with stuff like Strax and the Paternoster Gang. It's the first time we've seen them since A Good Man Goes to War. It's also the debut of not quite my favourite TARDIS, but like a beta version of my favorite interior TARDIS. There's just so many good moments, and I gotta can it. I also enjoy the villain in this episode. There's a lot of good moments. Again, another good one where Christmas isn't the forefront of the episode. Christmas is in the background. Plus, it's always snowing, so you just have that Christmas feel. It's funny I associate Christmas with snow, even though I've never seen snow. But anyway, moving on to my seventh spot. Now, this was tricky to place. It's the End of Time, Part 1. I said I'm only doing Christmas episodes, so the second half has to be excluded, which is why this isn't nearly as big. Now, the first half is very good and got a lot of good build-up, but it's also not very Christmassy, which is fine. It still does have a few little good Christmas moments, and it does have that good feel of the later half of the 10th Doctor's era, but because it's a Christmas episode cut into two halves that also isn't on Christmas, I don't want to put it too high, and I do love the End of Time Part 2, but the first half, it's a bit tricky to rank it on just the first half, which is why I've given it the seventh slot. The seventh slot being perfectly in the middle of my rankings. So everything at this point, I'm going to love even more. But, yeah, I mean, hey, it does have good moments. We do have Wilf. We do have the Master, even though he could be a little cheesy. Don't get me wrong, I love John Sims' Master, but I think he overdid it a little too much. But there was still plenty of good moments. It's just not one you think about when you think about Christmas. But moving on, we're definitely in the halfway mark. It's Husbands of River Song. Now, this was a tricky one to place. Again, it's got a good Christmas feel where it manages to make a nice balance of happy and sad. It's kind of sad because it's one of the last times you're supposed to one of the last times the Doctor will see River. It's also the last time we've seen River as of this point. But it's also happy because you get the whole kind of thing of, well, they get to have their happy ever after for 24 years and all that. Plus, again, a nice balance of Christmas. It's a nice, light-hearted comedic episode, which it might seem odd to have a random comedic episode, but I like that. Christmas episodes are allowed to be light-hearted. They don't have to always be dark, although, well, I enjoy dark as well. Plus, Series 9 ended on some darker, heavier notes, so, coming straight into this light-hearted Christmas episode is something I enjoy. Plus, it's just so nice to see the 12th Doctor interacting with River. It's one of the better dynamics. We also get to be introduced to Nardo. It very much sets the stage for what will become the more light-hearted later half of the 12th Doctor's run. Plus, again, I'm a huge fan of the 12th Doctor. Moving on to our top 5, we have Twice Upon a Time. It's a very tricky episode because it feels kind of small, mainly because there's no real villain, and it's the Christmas episode design. It was kind of literally filler. It was almost, because originally they were supposed to end it at the Doctor Falls, and that would be the end of 12, but they did it for one more episode, and I actually really love it, mainly because it is the ending of an era. It's the ending of 12, it's the ending of Moffat, and it's the ending of Murray Gold, so we get a lot of reused, really good Murray Gold music in this episode, so that's a compliment. You get to see, the one downside of this episode is, while yes, we love having the First Doctor, a lot of people will of course agree that some of his lines can just come off as very much an inaccurate portrayal of the First Doctor. It's more just, let's have an exaggerated stereotype, which, while it's comedic moments, it's not very an accurate portrayal. But it also had plenty of good moments, and it's one of the clever ways is, although Christmas wasn't highlighted too much, they managed to bring it back around to Christmas near the end. Whilst, yes, there's plenty of snow, which still gets you in that Christmas feel, it also ties it in with the Christmas armistice, a actual historical moment. I don't know, while, yes, that's set the exact way but they portrayed it might not have been exactly accurate, it's still a historic moment, so they not only tied it into Christmas, they tied it into actual history, which is great. And I might be wrong, but I think no, it's not. I was about to say it's the only historical one, but it's not the only historical Christmas episode. Snowman was as well. But it's still a very good episode. It's the end of an era. You gotta love 12's final moments. Moving on to my fourth best moment, and it's surprising that I put this high, but it's the next Doctor. It's actually a really good episode. It's nice to just see 10 without a true companion. He's also not tied down by any weight, so it's not clear how much time has passed, but it's just a really good episode. Again, it's a good way to, you don't always have to shove Christmas in our face, but if you just make snow always in the background, you always have that Christmas feel, especially if you're actually watching it at Christmas. You feel like, oh, it's a Christmas episode. Whereas sometimes they have episodes, oh yeah, well, I'm watching it at Christmas, but it just doesn't tell you it's Christmas, it's just an episode. But this one still has that Christmas feel, even though it's not, it doesn't really, I think it does take place at Christmas, but again, they don't have too much references to it, except for the happy ending where Jackson says, hey, can you come to Christmas dinner? Plus, again, you gotta love the portrayal of Jackson Lake. He does give a very good portrayal of a would-be doctor. I really enjoy it. I think it's a Christmas episode, or an episode in general, that I think a lot of people overlook. Everyone focuses on, like, the later specials, like Water Spas and the End of Time, or Series 4, which had a huge big ending, but I think the next Doctor gets very much overlooked, but it's just a very good, enjoyable episode. It's not huge, heavy episode. It's not lighthearted and fluffy. It's just a really good, balanced episode. And of course, you get a good ending. Yeah, I love the ending where, Jackson actually gets the townspeople to cheer on and thank the Doctor. And, as much as the Doctor says he doesn't do it for credit, you can see he's actually enjoying and soaking up that moment. The giant Cyberman may be a bit cheesy, but I still enjoy it. I enjoy the villain. And that's it. Moving on to the third best episode. Again, one I don't think enough people will put near their top. Last Christmas. Again, I love the 12th Doctor. There's lots of good 12th Doctor moments in this episode. The only moment I didn't particularly love too much was a bit of the stuff with Danny Pink, but the rest of the episode, I love. I love the whole dream inside a dream stuff. I like the references to dreams, like, oh, let's read the different books. All the side characters I actually enjoyed. None of them were annoying. It's just, and this was the earlier 12th Doctor, where he was a lot more stern, sarcastic, not as lighthearted as Series 9 and Series 10, but just starting to be a little bit like Series 9. But it's just really nice. There's a lot of good moments, and they found a way where you could feasibly have Santa be in a Christmas episode, even though it's not really Santa, it's a figment of your imagination. It's a really good way, it's a really clever compromise. It's like, okay, how can we get Santa in the episode? We don't want to actually say he exists, although the end kind of jokes that he might exist because you see the tangerine at the end. But again, you have all that, dream and Inception stuff. The face huggers makes for a good, it's another good Moffat villain of, just like you've got stuff where you don't blink, this time it's don't think about it, or Moffat loves those things where taking the most mundane things, like you can't blink, or you've got to avoid shadows, or like the teller where you can't think about it, or you can't think guilty thoughts. Again, it's another good thing of, if you ever tried not thinking and then you just think about it. A good villain, a lot of good 12th Doctor moments. I enjoyed the comedic, sarcastic banter, because, you get Santa in the episode, but he's not, of course, it's not going to be just a fun, joyous Santa. You get a kind of, it's a Santa that really matches the 12th Doctor. He's kind of sarcastic, joking, bantering back with each other. It's really good. Moving on to the second best Christmas episode. It's The Time of the Doctor. Like I said, as much as I was mean to 11 earlier on, I actually really enjoyed this as an ending episode. It's got a good balance of Christmas with the Clara having dinner. There's always snow in the background. You get huge good moments with the Daleks. One thing I will give credit to is, while I think it's odd they always make the 11th Doctor act childish, it's clear in moments where you can see that Matt Smith excels at playing older people. The moment when he starts to look older, you really believe he's older. Matt Smith can play older better than any of the other Doctors who aren't that old. That's the one thing I love. The ending where he's old. You can really get a sense of this is still the 11th Doctor, but you get a sense it's a bit of a different Doctor, which makes sense because he's older, he's seen it all and all that. The only odd thing I didn't care for was that silly moment where they say the town's called Christmas. It's so odd. It's just, you already had the snow, you already had Clara at Christmas, you didn't need to say the town is called Christmas. But again, it's a very good way to do the ending where you've got plenty of action with the Daleks and you get to show off all the other villains. But you also get plenty of nice smaller moments. There's really good smaller moments with that sunset scene or that scene with handles. You start off with a comedic moment. You start off with Clara having Christmas, which is a great way to start your Christmas episode. Then you ease into the fun action stuff and the calming down. And then you finally give us our ending, because it's not just a Christmas episode, it's the ending of 11. But what is my favorite Christmas episode? Well, what's missing? Voyage of the Damned. Easily my favorite Christmas episode. It's got good Christmas moments. It's got that Russell T Davies feel of making Christmas not necessarily lighthearted. It's quite dark. I have a huge love for, action movies and so on. So you've got the action movie cliche of you've got a group that progressively gets smaller of people getting picked off. I do like the moment that, as much of a jerk as that one guy was, he's the one that survives, which again is a good moment because, it'd be boring if it was all the fun people who survived. You've got to have the people who aren't so fun surviving, the people that 10th Doctor isn't that fond of because he has some rather careless or callous moments. But he's also good in the moment too, because it's good near the end when they still really start to form a team. I actually enjoy Astrid Peth. She makes a very good would-be companion. Plus, it would have been fun since she's a companion who's not earthbound, which they didn't do much in the modern series. Again, it's got good Christmas feel because you've got, the Titanic wants to theme itself around Christmas. You've got snow. You've got a disaster. You've got that moment where they're on Earth and we meet Wilf and it's empty. It's just got a bit of everything. And it's a huge action-packed episode where there's no really small or boring moments. There's never a moment where I'm thinking, oh, this is a bit silly or small or quiet. There's no scenes where I'm waiting for it to just end. It's just non-stop action, especially once the action actually kicks in. I don't know, I can't explain how much more I love it, but I'd probably have to say out of all of them, it sticks out the most as my favourite of these Christmas episodes. It's a bit sad that we're not getting Christmas episodes anymore. I don't know why we're not. Who cares? But anyway, that is my ranking of the Christmas episodes. It's probably a lot different than what a lot of other people say. But also, the Doctor Who community, it's very divisive. You never really feel like you're getting a common opinion, because I can go to one area and have a lot of people say they love an episode, then a lot of people hate an episode. I had Christmas Carol very low, and people I was talking to say they love it. It's just a mixed bag, but that was my ranking and my general thoughts on the episode, and just a fun idea I had to want to put out an episode for Christmas. But, with that being said, I will see you next time for more Doctor Who and other videos and reviews as well. See you next time, guys.